Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining this next episode of Nic of Time. And we're going to get started in about 3-4 minutes now with Stix joining us. It's going to be an awesome episode talking today about how to revolutionize defense and discuss all his achievements, both on the civilian side, on the commercial side, and now serving the nation now for 30 plus years. So stay tuned. We're going to get started in about 2-3 minutes. In the meantime, feel free to subscribe to the show. Go to inicofTime.tv. You'll be able to click on the link here and put your email to get an email notification every day, every week, so you can see the next episode. You'll see we're going to get some pretty amazing guests. We're already booked until October. So if you have names, people you want to see on the show, send us some names. We'll be able to invite them to the show. A lot of great people. But this is probably my most exciting episode of the entire history of In the Nic of Time with Stix. He's awesome. He's a game changer. He's a doer. He's a patriot, and he gets stuff done. So stay tuned for another couple of minutes. We'll get started. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining this next episode of In the Nic of Time. We're very lucky today. We have probably my favorite guest, Stix, joining us, Colonel Peter Chiou Stix, as we call him. He's awesome. He's a game changer. He gets stuff done. He doesn't complain. He's a patriot. He's an immigrant like me. What's not to like? He's a little bit older, okay? So give him a break. But he looks like 25, so he gets away with it. But he's done a lot for the nation. He knows things that most people can't even comprehend. He's very technical, but he's also capable of briefing senior leadership, so they understand the value of what he's trying to achieve. He's been able to do more for the nation than most people have invited on the show combined. So he's just a treat for you guys today. We'll be talking about revolutionizing defense. And honestly, he's done that and he's continuing to do this. Unfortunately, it's time for him to go back to the commercial side after, again, making a tremendous difference for the nation. So we're lucky to have him. He's exceptional. He's going to talk to us today about what he has been building in partnership with the Chief Architect Office at first with the our dear friend Preston Dunlap with the Integrated Warfighting Network, and what that meant for the warfighters in tangible ways. And honestly, it's been nothing but an entire disruption of what we know didn't work, and now bringing the solutions and not just talking about problems. That's what Stix does. He's putting everybody together, bringing the most capable and people that go beyond the talking points and able to execute and make a tremendous difference. So very lucky to have him. Again, if you've not subscribed to the show, please do that. Go to nicofTime.tv. You'll be able to put your email and get the notification once per week about the next episode. We're going to move to a 2-week cycle most of the summer, but you'll be able to get a notification every 2 weeks. And we're pretty booked until September, October. But if you have a couple of names or guests you think we should be inviting, please send it my way on LinkedIn so we can reach out and have them come on the show. We have a couple of amazing guests coming, but no one likes Stix, so this is exciting. Again, if you've not tried Sage, I'm not going to bore you again, but go check it out. GPT for the government, bringing now over 5,000 government teams and 950 companies access to this GPT platform. Go check it out. We have a Let's Beat China, which is a favorite coupon code of Stix at NI. So get a discount forever for the life of your account. So that's a good deal. And we only have 1,000 account, so I think if there was 1,000 account, there's probably 250 left. So you better jump on that before it's gone. And with that, I'm gonna give you a rundown of Stix bio, but this is the typical DoD bios. Doesn't tell you what a game changer he is. He's been serving the nation for 33 years, commissioned officer. He has a deep background, of course, both in the military, but also on the commercial side, as you'll see. Deep technical expert. He understands the value of collaboration. He brings people together. He has this amazing talent to identify both the business and the mission objectives to drive success. He's been serving first. Served as the Air Force Reserve's individual military augmentee to the director of the Air Force PEO Digital at Hanscom Air Force Base. He also served as the deputy commander of the 252nd Cyber Operations Group, and with 300 plus airmen in his charge. We'll ask him why he's not a 1-star already, or 3-star, or 5-star. They should just create a new star for Stix. They should be a special group of people just for him. So with that, after that he's been activated for 1 year in the White House Communication Agency, where he implemented stuff that's still there today. It's pretty amazing. But he knows he's able to see what's coming. He knows pretty much what to focus on, something that's beyond the buzzwords, but still bring tremendous value and can get stuff done. So in the private sector, he has led many projects as an architect and managed over 700 plus million. He's recently was serving, I guess, as the principal cloud solution architect at Microsoft Federal, and left the cushy, well-paid Microsoft job to come and serve again in the building, making a difference. And now his time is over, and it's sad, and it's a big loss for the Air Force, but he's going to keep doing tremendous things on the commercial side. So we're excited for that. So now let's bring him on the show. Welcome, Stix.
Yeah, thanks, Nic. Appreciate it. Making me feel a little bit, making me blush a bit here, laying out so thick.
Well, you deserve it. You deserve it. There's not a lot of people I would say the things I said, probably, I can count them on one hand at best. And you by far the most capable and the person that got the most stuff done on the military side that I know by far. So we're thankful both for your service, but also it's interesting how your journey is going to be part of the discussion today, right? As an immigrant like me, we see so many born American, not understanding the importance of America and the nation, and effectively we almost care more than they do, and it's always interesting to me. But I love to get your feedback on that. We'll talk about that today. But first, we want to hear a little bit about your journey. I think it's so impressive looking back, at the 200 years plus you've been alive and all the stuff you've been able to do. So,
Yeah, no, thanks, Nic. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, how do you want me to start? Just in the beginning, when I was born at a very early age.
oh, yeah, 1800s, something like that.
No, yeah, yeah. So you're right. I am an immigrant. I was born and raised in Taiwan, and my parents immigrated to the DC area. I actually graduated from Fairfax High School. I'm sure many of you you know that well. I'm sure that location. When I found out that you lived in Front Royal area, I'm like, dude, that's way on the boondocks. And so that was a long drive when I dragged out a couple of your fans. I think I told you,
That's
right, 2 years ago when we first met, hey, can I bring a couple of fans? And I think I brought 5 or 6 with me.
Oh yeah, you brought
To
a
that,
whole crew.
yeah,
I
to that
remember.
place.
That was a lot of fun. That was probably the funniest, more engaging dinner I had in a long time. So,
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. You had a lot of fans. Anyway, so yeah, I grew up in DC area in in Fairfax County, Fairfax City, and gosh, when I was 13 years old, I decided that I wanted to study electrical engineering, and I'm not sure how that came about. I think that was encouragement from my mom and certain people that they had put me in touch with and introduced me to. That got me interested in electronics and those type of things. Back then, we were just phasing out of vacuum tubes. Do you know what those are? um, into transistors, and so that was a pretty heady time for us. I remember all the magazines and all talking about electronics, computers, and all. Bill Gates had just not even recently. When did Bill Gates start Microsoft? Um,
don't
yeah.
they tell
Anyway,
you all
about the
these
same
numbers
time.
when you work for the company? I thought you would know all the marketing, stuff. So
Yeah. Well, you think I
you should
should,
know the
right? Yeah.
numbers. You
So
should know the numbers. You
yeah,
should know every key year. 95 Microsoft, 3.1, 95, 98, whatever, right? So I
yeah,
bet it was maybe
exactly. Yeah.
I forgot. I'll tell you in a second.
Well,
Microsoft.
their
Let's look.
standards have obviously lowered since. But anyway, I went to Purdue and then studied double E and joined ROTC.
1975.
1975.
1975.
Okay. Yeah. And and I think when I graduated from college, that's when Windows 3.0 was also released, and so that was a big deal then. But anyway, yeah. So I graduated, got a commission, and went active duty. And I started as a air battle manager, so I control fighter jets from behind a radar scope. I will say, my most exciting time as an ABM was my 5 hours in the back seat of an F-15. Went on a
Oh yeah.
three-ship formation takeoff, doing air combat maneuvering we hit a tanker first, so that was really cool. Being in the backseat of 15, seeing the boom coming on my left side, and then my second and third rides were on a 2v2 DACT dogfight training with F-16s. And that was really cool. Pulled 8.3 Gs. When I got on the ground, I remember just how much work it was. The fighter pilots, they got to be fit, because I remember sweating like a pig up there because you're squeezing against G suit, and the cold air is blowing in your face, and you're squeezing when he's pulling the G's. And by the time I was done, I wanted to take a nap. And I also remember seeing in my forearm all these little red dots of my capillaries bursting because you were pulling so many G's. Anyway, that was a great experience in my younger days. I don't think I could do that these days, but yeah, it was
Oh,
good.
you're better
So
fit than
anyway,
me, so I'm sure you can do it. Come on.
yeah. And then I remember being PCS to Washington State, and I was newly married, a kid on the way, and I thought, shoot, I'm about to be transferred again. And next, I was pretty sure it would have been AWACS at Tinker, and at the same time, uh, the Western Air Defense sector was also being transitioned from active duty into the Air National Guard. And I was approached and asked if I wanted to come on active duty in the Guard. They call it AGR program, Active Guard Reserve. And I decided to stay because we loved where we lived and we loved the church we got involved in and wanted to raise our kids here. And so my wife and I decided that we would join the Guard and raise our family here, which is where I still am many years later. But in 2000, there was a thing called the networking. It was during the .com boom time also, and so my unit was transitioning um, from a. I'm sorry. Let me back up a little bit. So I helped a combat com unit transition from combat com into a cyber operations, and our assistant adjutant general for air. Gosh, what's his name? General Frank Scoggins. That's right, Frank Scoggins. He had the vision to stand up a cyber unit. Back then, it wasn't called cyber; it was called information operations or information warfare. And I was one of the early folks in that 32 members unit, the 262. And we stood up that unit, and I cross trained into cyber, and that's where my time in the reserve and guard started, and led me until now. Now the crazy thing is, I'm not sure if you know how the Air National Guard works. When you get to the senior ranks, they are very constrained by billets. You have to have a billet before you can pin on the rank. And so when I pinned on colonel, I was in there for a number of years, and I was eventually asked, "Hey, hey, Stix, Peter, we're going to need your slot so that we can promote others because if I continue to sit my slot, then other people could not promote." And I said, "Yep, got it, no problem. I can find another role to go into," but I wasn't quite done yet to retire. So many of my colleagues, when they have gotten to that point, they would typically retire. But for something, I just didn't retire. I remember a General Dravis, who was a friend of mine, became a friend and mentor, and he says, "Peter, you'll know you're done when you're ready, but until then, you'll continue to do what you do." So that's kind of my journey.
It's pretty amazing. You wish they would have pinned you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, 7. I don't know by now. We'll talk about why not. That's an interesting discussion. But so obviously you're a reservist. You were having the living the cushy life. Microsoft. I'm sure it's a fun job. A lot of great technology, great people there. Love them. What brought you back to active duty?
Well, interesting. You're right. I was having a lot of fun, and there might be some of my colleagues who are here today who were on the same projects I was, and I had a great time. But here's the thing that changed when I came into the reserves. I then learned about this thing called ABMS, Advanced Battle Management System, and and I thought, wow, that sounds really cool. And I would love to be. And I heard about On Ramp 2 from Smack Davis. You may remember him.
Yep.
And he
right
and
here.
another guy named. Okay, great. Hey, Smack, what's up? And another dude called Hum Camel was in the room with me, and they told me about this thing called ABMS. It was leading up to On Ramp 2, and I said, "Dude, that sounds so cool." And so they introduced me to another colonel. You may know him too, Email Philcorn. And so I called up Email and said, "Hey, dude, how do I get more involved with ABMS and all? I think I can help." Given my technical depth and background and all, I spent 14 years at Cisco and number of years at Microsoft doing similar type of things. I think I can bring something to the fight. And he goes, "Hey, want to come on orders for about 5 or 6 months?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And then, of course, that was almost 3 years ago.
That was 3 years ago, right? So that wasn't 6
Almost.
months.
Yep.
Thank God you've done a lot. So I guess
Well,
you're
it's been a
excited with this
privilege.
ABMS shiny object, which is true. You got a lot of stuff done in the ABMS universe, as we call it, more than most people that I know. Um, so that was, okay, you were supposed to start for 6 months. I'm sure you went to your wife and say, hey, we're just gonna do 6 months or whatever. What led you to extend to 3 years?
Oh gosh, man.
It just
I
time you saw progress. What was it? You saw the
yeah,
momentum.
I remember when I was in the guard, and you mentioned why I'm not a general. There's a lot of reasons, but one of the things is I'm lazy. I
For sure.
there's a lot of things you have to do to progress in your rank, and I just didn't do them because I told all my colleagues, guys, I will stay in the guard as long as I'm having fun, and I guess I was just having too much fun. Um,
Right.
and and there's a need for me to be here, back then, and so I kept going. All right, well, job is not done yet. Job is not done yet. And I feel like finally it's at a point where I feel comfortable leaving, and I think the vision has been established.
Right. That's right. So, looking at, your signature, people that know you have this statement, for the Republic. It's in your signature block. It's different from pronouns or whatever people put nowadays. What what is kind of your reason behind, having that in your signature?
Yeah, for most people they say VR, right? And I still remember. I mean, gosh, like you said, I'm just a couple of years older than you are. I remember when the first email servers were being rolled out at Tyndall Air Force Base, and we were using CC Mail. And as time progressed, they came up with a new and interesting signature block. And VR, I'm like, what the heck is VR? I never knew what it meant. When I learned what it meant, very respectfully, I'm like, dude, if you respect me so much, why don't you spell it out instead of abbreviate it with V/R?
That's
So I thought it
right.
was
That's
kind of
right.
silly.
Yes.
I guess a year, maybe I started a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I thought, forget that. Let me do something that means something. So I started signing for the Republic, and people thought, oh, could that be a reference to Star Wars and all? But no, it's not. There's a story behind it, actually. If you remember back in your history lesson, when France and America were very good friends back then, and France was also one of the reasons why America succeeded in the revolution. And in 1778, when Benjamin Franklin stepped out of the Independence Hall in Philadelphia after negotiating and litigating what kind of government that we will have, a woman approached him and said, "Hey, Mr. Franklin, what kind of government have you given us, sir?" And he paused and said, "Well, let me pause there and see if the crowd wants to respond with what he said."
Let's see. Comment
This
below
is
if you know what he said. Although there's a little bit
it's
of
very
delay,
common.
with LinkedIn. So there's unfortunately
That's all
LinkedIn is
right.
often 2-3 minutes behind. So they
Yeah,
might
I
say,
can't
so
see it.
I'll show you the comments when they pop up. But
That's
there's
fine.
already two three
I'll
minutes behind.
Yeah, that's okay. Type it in there, and but he said to the woman, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And I think that really resonated with me because we are a republican form of
Yeah,
government. We are
people
not
are
a
putting it.
democracy.
I see 3, 4. Yep, yep. Ruben knew it. Of course, Ruben knows everything. Michael knew it.
Yeah,
Darren
yeah,
knew it. So we have a lot of people so far. So
yeah. And that's why I decided to use that as my signature block instead of VR. Because I think I'm innovated by our country, by what we stand for, and I want to keep it. And I fear that we are not doing a very good job of it right now, and I don't want to lose this aspect of our republic. You know,
that's right.
um, so
That's right.
that's why.
Makes sense. I love it. So, okay, what do you love so much about the Republic? We hear it's bad nowadays. Socialism is the cool thing to do. So, as an immigrant, what makes it special?
Man, look at me. Look at me. I look different from you, don't I? just a
You
little
do a
bit.
little, a tiny
My
bit.
hair,
You
my
look young.
eyes.
You look younger
Yeah.
though. So
Well, that is true. That is true. I will say that. But I being an immigrant to this country, and yet I can still become a colonel in the Air Force, and I suspect maybe even higher if I had done all the right things and um, toe the line a bit in certain respects. But I don't think I'm. I think I'm better as a colonel than a GO anyway. But the Declaration of Independence says that um, all men are created equal or something like that, and that they are endowed by their creator. So with a certain set of rights, unalienable rights, right? And so it's not the government who gives us these rights. It's our creator who gave us these rights. And this is the only country on earth that has this written into their founding documents. And so that's what makes it so special and what means a lot to me. Because I'm not sure if you knew, but back in 1978, when I left Taiwan, Taiwan was under martial law. And I don't think they lifted martial law until I want to say 89 or something like that. I remember growing up and going on the street corner, and there's a soldier standing there with his rifle. Um, and that was where I grew up. And so now in America, we could anybody can achieve what they want to achieve, but based on the individual's gumption and grit, right? There's and people are talking about um, population decline or and all, and I think we've gotten that wrong quite a bit actually. But if you look at the world, there is certainly not going to be an overpopulation problem in the years to come. I think, in fact, we are going to see a population decline, and nowhere is it worse than in China. If you read a book called "The Accidental Superpower" by Peter Zeihan, he talks about this at length, and he also made a point to say that America, we are not a nation state in the way that most nations would know. Like, for example, in France, most people are French and they are Norman, right? And in China, 94% of the people in China are Han Chinese, and 98% of the people in Taiwan are Han. So in that way, we're very different. And we allow people like you and I to come to America and become American and serve in ways that many Americans can only imagine also. I remember during the early COVID days, Hollywood Jim, a friend of mine now, but he's also a reserve colonel. And he called me one day and says, "Hey, Peter, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry in behalf of all the Americans and the white people that you Asians are being kind of singled out for this COVID problem." And I said, "Well, Jim, thanks for that. Your apology accepted, but I don't feel any of it. And if anything, I'm grateful that there are these racial problems. Not grateful, but I'm glad that we have these racial problems because in America, we have more than a single race. We have people like you and I, people who come from different backgrounds, who can all coexist in one place. In fact, if you look at China, like I said earlier, 90 some odd percent Han Chinese, same with Taiwan. There are no racial problems there because they were all the same, or they are all the same. You know what I'm saying?
there's
So
no
if we
race. There's no problem
emphasize
of race. That's right. There's only one.
exactly, there's no
That's easy to solve
diversity.
the problem. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
diversity.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're conformist in thought, in their skin color and all. But here we value diversity, not only in racial background, religion, but also in the way we think. Like you and I, I mean, we're good friends, but you and I think we have gone at it a couple times, haven't we?
Sure.
Where we disagree
That's a
on
good.
things.
That's a good. That's a good thing. I love
That's
it.
right. That's right. That's right. Anyway, that's what makes America special in my mind.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
Maybe we should teach
Yeah.
that again in school. I
You
think that
think?
this education system is the problem here again. So
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
us a little
I
bit
agree.
about. So you mentioned your time at Cisco, right? And there's this fancy CCIE, 7482. certification that exists. What is that about? And tell us a little bit about your time at Cisco.
Oh, I loved it there. That was awesome. It was probably the best decade of my one of the better decade in some of my life. I learned so much there.
I thought that
I
the
mentioned
best 2 years of your life were, when you were with me in the Air Force. I don't understand.
yeah, well, that's part of it too, but different aspects, right?
Just messing with you.
But just yeah, I know it was a great learning experience for me then. I studied double E in college and wanted to be a double E, and but even to this day, I don't think I've used my degree really, but it's opened a lot of doors for me. And I did want to be in communications, from an early age. In fact, I studied. I'm not sure if you remember, but Heathkit. We used to be able to build kits, buy these kits and build radios and these type of things.
Oh yeah.
I loved it.
Yes.
That kind of stuff
Yes.
when I was a kid. I told this is how nerdy I am. One of the greatest tragedies in the world is that Radio Shack is gone. I remember going into Radio Shack and to stand there and go gaga over the components there. I remember the new integrated circuits that would come out, and they had this text-to-speech synthesizer, and I used that as a science project in high school,
Wow.
and was able to do a number of things. And I'm almost also a ham. I'm KG70YXL as a ham radio operator. So anyway, all things communications. And so when I left when I was leaving the Air Force, going into the Guard, I thought, man, I would love to work for a communications company. And I did a lot of research. I did a number of informational interviews with Bay Networks before they got bought by Nortel, and also Cisco. And I would just do informational networks. And I remember a guy, I can't remember his name, at Cisco when I was doing informational interviews. He says, yeah, we only hire the best of the best. You don't have any experience with networking, so I don't think you'd be a good fit here at all.
Wow.
What was funny was a year later, I was at Cisco. And I went.
That was enough
rusty.
to get you
That's right.
excited to get it done. That maybe that's a
Well,
blessing.
yeah,
It's a blessing.
a challenge. Yeah, I
Right.
love their innovative culture, but as far as the CCIE, it stands for Cisco Certified Internet Network Expert. Back at the time, it was a big deal because they were the front runner of anything networking, right? Being able to translate between Apple Talk and IP and IPX and DECnet and Apollo and Banyan Vines and all these different protocols and making it to talk together, to interoperate by bringing different teams and different groups together so that they can speak a common language. Maybe that's why these last 3 years have been so awesome, because it was very similar to that kind of stuff. And so when I was there, I did optical, did unified communications, call manager, standard route switching. So yeah, I met a lot of great people there. And my experience there, I think, has been what enabled me to do what I've done, what we've done the last 3 years here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a foundation of that knowledge that you expanded. So makes total sense. So you've
That's
been
right.
working on this exciting project. Although I had advised to swap the letter and call it WIN instead of IWN, but it doesn't matter. The Integrated Warfighting Network. I mean, it sounds better as WIN. Let's win, but whatever.
No, that's
So
right.
you've been working on that, right? How did all that get started, and what's the vision, and what are the benefits to the warfighter?
Yeah. So when I first came back on active duty, there's you mentioned I worked at the White House Communications Agency in 03, and I was a guard guy. I got activated there, and I was there for a year. And I met a guy there named John Forte. You may remember him. Yeah. And he was working for Preston at the time, or Mr. Dunlap. And I think when I shot email my resume, and he handed it to John Forte. John Forte remembered me, and that's why he brought me back. And I think when I came back, it was kind of like, all right, there was not a formal role for me, and it kind of reminded me of my time in the White House Comm Agency when I showed up on site, and there was a lieutenant colonel from DISA who brought me online and said, "All right, Major, just go and start adding value." And I'm like, okay. And so that's kind of the same approach I took this time when I came on active duty was, well, what do they need help with? And what do I know? And what can I help with? And so, I was at Microsoft at the time as a cloud solutions architect, and we were just leading up to OnRamp 4 or ADE4 in Germany. And they were talking about building their own stacks, right? Remember the Yoda box and a number of other stacks and all. And I thought that's kind of silly. Why don't we just use like a standard off the shelf edge kit like Microsoft Azure Stack or AWS? And about the same time, somebody said, "Hey, we have a CRADA with Microsoft." And I said, "Really? We do? Awesome. Let's get that." And being Microsoft and Air Force, I thought, well, that's kind of conflicty. So I thought, in order to be fair and inclusive, let me also reach out to AWS and see if they want to play ball. So we got a CRADA established with AWS, and about 2 months before the on-ramp, Microsoft pulled out, and AWS stayed in and continued to the end. And they eventually came to Germany with the team and deployed their Snowball. And guess what? They're still around in Germany and they're expanding there, which is great. And so about the same time,
with the Microsoft thing. I was a little surprised when that happened. I remember that
yeah.
time, and that was a time where Microsoft was short-sighted. That's gone now, but they were very short-sighted then. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I need to, I'm going back there in a month and a half, so I shouldn't say too much more. But
you love them, but I can't say it. That's okay.
Yeah. Needless to say, we know there were some internal conversations between them. I'm sure that were
sure
that came up to me.
They learn now.
They did. Yeah. So about the same time, Tony DeSimone, Dr. DeSimone, and I were talking about much of the issues that we have here. So he and I authored a paper called Ubiquitous Connectivity. And so we wrote the paper and shopped it around, and so not much came of it. And then after OnRamp 4, then Preston or Mr. Dunlap came up and said, "Hey, thanks for what you did for that with the Edge node." And I didn't know that he was tracking it as much, but he was. And so he said, "Hey, I want you to lead a sprint to talk about data." And that's when he appointed Taylor Flaxington, now GIST, as co-lead of mine. So we partnered together to lead a 2-week summit for data in Mark Center, and I think that's where I had you do a briefing also.
Right. That's right.
And that prompted them to come up. We came up with this big 6 of data platforms, and they then took that and presented at the Corona the same year. So Preston was able to present that at Corona, and that became the decision that our leaders had made. So anyway, all that to say, long story to get to your short question is how to get started. So after those things, then Preston gave the data effort to Taylor and to Greg Rushing. And I thought, oh man, bummer. What's up with that? I want to do that. And he says, well, I got something else for you. And so he says, I want you to lead a sprint to explore how we can modernize our SIPRNet. And that was the original intent. And so he said, hey, but be bold. So, okay, you told me to be bold. Be careful what you ask for. And so that's when we assembled a small team, and we met at Johns Hopkins in Maryland, and started talking about this. It was called something else besides IWN, but we started this thing, and I also told the team we have to be using software-defined WAN. We cannot use networking as we know it. And so, and the paper that
tell people what is SD-WAN for people that don't know. What's the benefit of being software defined?
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
What's a WAN? What's a WAN? People may not know what's a WAN. Not everybody is a network guy. There's a lot of software people here. So what's a WAN, and what's the difference with an SD-WAN, I guess?
Sure. So Dr. DeSimone and I wrote the paper about ubiquitous connectivity, and our position was you should be able to use, because we have so much good encryption, right? We should be able to use the same network for any classification of data, whether it be unclassified to TS and above. And so that was the basis of the paper. And WAN is a wide area network. It's a network that connects you to other distant locations. And WAN is what connects, say, Langley Air Force Base to McCord Air Force Base. It goes over a WAN. And in the middle, the WAN could be provided by a number of different providers. It could be AT&T, Verizon, and Equinix, all interconnected somehow via this thing that we call the Internet Protocol. And so that's what why SD-WAN is important, because we have so many networks. We got networks for TS, we have networks for secret, we have networks for unclassified, and it just gets to be too expensive, too costly to maintain over time, and it's complex. And so you need separate teams with separate clearances to be able to manage different networks and all. That makes it very burdensome. And so the idea was, hey, let's use any network for any classification, including the internet. You should be able to sit at Starbucks and be able to process classified data if you want to. Not that you would, but you could.
Not if people can see your screen, but I at least on the connectivity side, you could do it from anywhere, including a dirty network. But what's the difference between a WAN and an SD-WAN? Software defined. Okay, what does that mean practically speaking?
Yeah, so software defined means you can manage your network via software and be inputted via. Okay, so a good example. Today, if you want to, with all the tools aside, we have firewall tools, proxies, and those type of things. I can do a lot of work. But with all those things aside, if you want to say block Facebook or a social media portal, you have to do a lot of work. Or TikTok. You have to do a lot of work. You got to know the IP addresses, maybe even the DNS names and all, and do those things. And that takes somebody who understands the network that you're using to be able to go in there and be able to configure those devices. And the problem is we have a big network, and you have to do that at a lot of different places in order to say block TikTok, right? And that's what, by the way, what CCIE is Cisco deemed you as a router jack. You can now do that on their devices. Well, software defined means I can now do this without human beings, without fat fingering commands into keyboards, but I can do it via software integration using whatever extensible APIs I want to use, mostly RESTful APIs. And so by doing that, I can now say, hey, we have information condition Bravo, for example. Okay, I now need to cut off social media, and I can push a button, and it will go out to all the different devices and then block automatically. Now, there are more sophisticated ways of doing that with proxies and firewalls, next generation firewalls and all. But that's where the software defined comes in. When I was at Microsoft, we also use SD-WAN for our networks, for remote sites and all. So
I guess most people do it. It also enables not to be stuck in time, right? With physical constraints, right? It's making it more flexible than you would see a traditional one be on the physical footprint, because the software is able to kind of rearrange routing and different things. So you could be way more flexible than you would be able to do that with a traditional one.
That's right.
Stack. Yeah,
that's right.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
So the
and,
foundation of IWN was based on both and we'll talk about secure vector routing SVR later. But SD-WAN was kind of that foundation. What was the outcome? For people that are not technical people here, what was the goal? Of okay, you want to flatten networks. You want to prove that you can use any network to connect to SIPR. What was the main goal of the engagement?
Yeah, main goal or the problem that solves, right? When I first came back to active duty, I think and joined the team, and after on-ramp 4 and then they went through a big reorg and all, and um, John Forte and Preston decided that they would pull me up into the ABMS team on his team instead of being reorged into other teams and all. And so when Preston and I met one-on-one, he kind of conveyed his vision to me, and I thought, man, that's a really cool vision. And I asked a question of, well, how do you expect to connect the sensors to shooters? And really, that's a vision for both ABMS, JADC2, Overmatch, and Project Convergence, right? It's all the same. We want to connect sensors to shooters. We want to connect sensors from the Air Force to shooters in the Army, for example. So I asked that question about how they would expect to connect. Well, and he gave me an answer that I didn't necessarily find was like, this is a good way to go. And, because we all know that our network today, leaves a lot to be desired. And so I thought, you know what, I can help. And so that's where I came in. So that's kind of the problem that it came to solve. But I think
the problem was
one
connecting sensor to shooter and be kind of agnostic with, the method or the mechanism to connect them, and avoiding kind of bottlenecks, and also like a one size fits all way. And so having,
that's right.
Options between 5G, satellite, fiber,
Right.
Traditional connectivities, and kind of bring this uniform stack of options that can be leveraged by
Right.
teams.
But it's a that's part of it. That's a technical and immediate problem thing. But there's a larger problem also, and that is, and this as well as I do, that we have this thing in America called the free market, right? And we have crazy people, people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and they started creating their stuff like Starlink, Viasat, Kuiper, Iridium. And we also have AWS, Azure, Oracle, Google, and all. We have all these private companies. So a lot of folks say that in the next conflict we go to, we have to go in a joint manner next time. Well, I challenge that.
And government stuff.
And exactly, we have to go with a whole of nation approach, and not just joint, whole of nation. So we bring the best of what we have. I mean, everything that China has is what? They're copied from us, right? And so let's use what, and they can't steal that much. Maybe they can, but let's use what we've created. And so we bring mass and maneuver to this environment, so that we have so much comms they can't deny us any, because in order for them to degrade us, they would have to take us down.
The biggest issue, right, with the Russia Ukraine conflict, where communications ended up being the number one issue for the Russians, right? If they had that,
that's right.
IWN, they would be able to have redundancy, alternatives, and no one could disrupt the stack because they had options. They ended up having to use cell phones, with generals getting shot and killed because they were using, regular cell phones, right? So
that's right. That's exactly right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where SD-WAN came in. Without SD-WAN, there's no way we could do that. Well, we'll probably have some other technology, but it looked like SD-WAN by a different name. But this type of approach is the only approach that we have to be able to bind, to weave all these things together. What Tony and I call the UBF, or ubiquitous black fabric, and in the paper, I think I said that there should be no place on Earth where you're without comms.
Right. Interesting. Or space, maybe, even.
So, well, even there, we have a lot of comms, yeah.
That's right. So I think we have to go beyond now. So
yeah.
So part of the IWN landscape is this thing called the secure vector routing, SVR. Most people have no clue what that is and what the benefit of that is. Can you tell us, for layman's, what the benefit of SVR is?
Yeah, sure. A lot of people, they've come up with their own version and flavor of SD-WAN. Back in the early days of .com, we had all sorts of protocols, right? We had IPX, Banyan Vines, Apple Talk, IP, and all. And I think eventually we all coalesced into a single standard called the Internet Protocol, which is described by an RFC in IETF. And the IETF RFC, or request for comments, that's a standard document in IETF that tells you about the protocol itself and how it should be, how the format of the data should be formatted. And in SD-WAN, we don't have that. And so a few years ago, I came across this company, 128 Technology, and they got this thing called Secure Vector Routing. And to me, it was like, big deal, just another SD-WAN. And all SD-WAN use are tunnels. And tunnels are interesting. Tunnels been around for a long time, since about 1990s, 2000s. IPsec is a big tunnel, and they encapsulate, they pad the beginning and the end with more data, right? So that everything in the middle is unseen. While Secure Vector Routing got rid of tunnels, because with tunnels, everything has to go through the tunnel. It's like having a big pipe, and your voice, video, real-time data, email data, big file transfers all have to go through the same pipe. So whatever happens to the big pipe will happen to everything inside the pipe. And so what SVR does for us is it now breaks the content of the pipe into individual little pipes, if you will. So what that means is there are no more tunnels. And without tunnels, that means we can now maneuver outside the tunnels. So remember, comms are just a network, and the network is cyberspace. And the cyberspace, in military terms, they need to conform with our doctrine. And there's a document that the joint forces have written called Joint Publication 3-12, which is Doctrine for Cyberspace Operations. In it are two concepts. One is to retain freedom of maneuver for warfighters, and that freedom of maneuver is applicable to any domain. It could be cyber, it could be land, it could be space, sea, whatever, right? And the second principle that in the doctrine is that we wanted to deny our adversary or threats freedom of action, so that they can't do anything to us. Well, with SVR, because it's not only extensible, but it's also tunnelless, that means I can now maneuver the traffic to any destination I want to. So if I said, hey, Nic Chaillan's traffic to us is really bad, I want to know what he's doing, I can now say, route his traffic to a special honeypot, so I can actually study his tactics, techniques, and protocols, or TTPs. And if the CSPs, cloud service provider, use it, then that means we can now conjoin these different networks, these different cloud environments into a single network. Now we don't have to worry about having complex routing configured. I'm thinking I'm going more technical than I need to, but
no, this is great.
Now
great.
AWS has embraced it in their service called Terra. I'm not sure if they announced it yet. Maybe I shouldn't say too much more about that. And then, of course, Azure has been using it. I know, too late. In their Azure Orbital. And they're both using SVR as the underlying protocol to bind their networks together. Oracle, to some extent. And when I saw the military utility of SVR, I went to their founder, the L128T founder, before they were bought by Juniper, and say, hey, listen, there's a lot of utility here and applicability to the DoD. Would you consider releasing that into a public IETF RFC? IETF is the Internet Engineering Task Force that controls all the things that are standards based, and those are big ask. It was a proprietary protocol that they developed for themselves to be able to capitalize on. And I asked them, would you consider giving it to the world, that standard? And you know what they said? Yeah. So in October of 2021, they published the first draft RFC. Now, RFCs take years to get ratified, and ratification is a process by which a standard becomes, or a draft becomes a standard. And so it's going to take some time. And so, of course, we have Juniper now that bought by 128T, that is now a standard. And we've talked to a second company now, Swoop. They have given verbal that they would support it also. And of course, with any corporation, that takes time to make that push that forward.
Yeah, it's always great.
So that's what SVR is.
Not that it's going to be a standout at some point. That's going to really help adoption. Obviously, people are always worried about IP and access. So that's
right.
You did mention back in 2022 this Valiant Shield event. Tell us a little bit about what this was about back then last year, and what did we get to see there, and what was the kind of the next step after that came out of the event.
Yeah, yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a blast. That was one of the probably well, not only because it was a cool exercise, but it also used a lot of technology that we came up with. And now I can't take the credit for what we did in Edge Connect. When we came up with SVR, it was actually another guy from GTRI, Bugs Bunnell, who said, "Hey, can we put this in the Edge node?" And I said, "Whoa, that's a great idea!" And so that's when we started building out the Edge Connect, and eventually we pulled in MITRE to help us kind of semi-protectionize that for the warfighter. But in Valiant Shield, what we did was really cool. In Palau, which is a small island between Guam and the Philippines. By the way, that's best snorkeling destination uh, there.
Right.
But anyway, during Valiant Shield, what we did was we took F-35 sensor data, and the F-35 uses onboard organic radar to lock on to a drone. Drone was launched, and the data was transmitted from the F-35 via this Edge Connect SVR SD-WAN over the open internet. Not purely open, but it was on over the open internet, so that there's a good connectivity, and that data was then transmitted and received by a Patriot missile battery, and the Patriots was able to use F-35 sensor data and shoot the drone from the Patriots. Was really cool, and we were also able to distribute the air picture to all the locations, not via Link 16, but via the open internet. How crazy is that, right? And that's when Admiral Aquilino, the Indo-PACOM commander, said, "I want that on my destroyers." And from that statement, the Joint Fires Network was born in Indo-PACOM, which is what I've been spending most of my time these last few months doing, is helping with the Joint Fires Network. And so now, with that, everybody wants to get involved. And what's next for it? Well, right now there is Northern Edge. And we started, I think, with 7 nodes of Edge Connect during Valiant Shield 22. Now, I want to say in Northern Edge, we have over 30 nodes now distributed across the Indo-Pacific.
And that's quite the achievement already in scale, despite being a little under a year old. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty exciting.
and it's a good example of effectively that sensor to shooter concept that everybody talks about, and often is a gimmick demo that's now really grounded in truth and real connectivity and stuff. So having the ability to showcase a real use case, I think, is what enables people to understand the benefit and the vision. So that was awesome.
Yeah, and Pack Fleet N6 really took off with that.
Right, that's right. And so, looking back, of all these years now serving the nation, there's obviously different type of urgency along the way, different events that, lead led people to kind of wake up and take action faster, stronger, whatever. What do you feel like has been preventing us now in the last, 5 years or so, whatever, 10 years from moving faster?
I think it goes without saying, it's the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy was created for something very valid back in probably I don't know, the Cold War, right? But since the .com period and how technology has transformed, I think we can't move at that pace anymore. We have to move faster, and I think everyone understands this. But there is a middle layer, I think, in the DoD organization. One of my favorite authorizing officials, Danny Holtzman. He's awesome. The frozen middle he coined, exactly. Yeah. And so anyway, Danny's awesome. But anyway, I think the frozen middle and bureaucracy is what is preventing us from moving faster. And not that they don't want to go faster themselves.
when you compare, with companies and stuff, right? The fact is, there's no reward for people to take risk and move faster, right? There's only
Right.
potential downside. There's zero benefit for these people. So we can't really blame people to be like, I have a job, I'm being told to follow X, Y, and Z regulations,
Right.
which most people can't even read or comprehend because it's massive. So by definition, you're going to be, more cautious. But then on top of that, there's only bad stuff that can happen if you you know push the boundaries. And so, on the commercial side, you get stock, you get bonuses, you get something, right? I mean, we do get medals and
Right.
stuff, right? I mean, there's that, but it's is that enough to put your life, at risk in the sense of losing your job or whatnot? Probably not, right? So, you know
Right.
and so we
Right.
can't blame people, right?
No, it can't. It's hard, and there's always conflict, and I think that's why I think from time to time you do need people from the outside, like you, like Lauren, like Preston, like Danny, who all come in, and we want to make changes, and we take the collective experiences we have from the outside. And I think what made these 3 years so possible was because of people like yourselves. Without you and Preston and Lauren, I don't think we could have gotten half the stuff done because of you guys' advocacy and because of Heather or General Blackwell and all. I mean, crap. Without you guys, without these leaders, I don't think these things could have gotten done. And because of our leadership and the urgency that they feel, we were able to get what we got done. I mean, look at CNAP. We used CNAP during Valiant Shield. Without CNAP, we would have been dead in the water. We were using teleports, and something happened to where they couldn't be used. And so, guess what? We had CNAP in place, so we were able to use those the technology you guys came up with.
Yeah, but it's the same concept with reservists, right? I think that's actually a very healthy model. I think it's not
Absolutely.
exploited well enough. I think people that come back into the government or are activated, they often pushed into the wrong jobs. There's no real study or analysis of where the best talent should be put in place based on their commercial experience. People are still, particularly on the military side, I think people are still treated as cattle in the sense of, people should know a little bit of everything. You should not be an expert in much. You should be able to do any job and, go from aircraft maintenance to, a PO shop to cyber to whatever. That's just not real, way of thinking anymore, and it doesn't work. And these technologies and these jobs are becoming more and more complex, and there's a lot to know to be able to thrive, and also understand the issues to come and fix them, right? If you're going to spend 3 years to
Right.
understand the problem, and by the time you get it, they move you to another job, or you go back to the commercial side, what can you
Right.
do, right? So I think we need to. It's
Right.
not just people like us that come from the commercial side. I think that's great. And by the way, I think that's why I love that it's limited in time. I think I was becoming myself part of the problem when you're getting used to the lack of velocity, and now you're getting so used to that you're adjusting your own timelines because you know how painful the building is, and you start becoming part of the problem by lowering what would be your normal expectations on the commercial side to get things done. And so I think it's pretty healthy for people to also go back like I did, and I will come back in the government one day and continue that. But I think it's 2 3 year cycle, 3 4 year, I think is good. But they have to be empowered and put in the right roles. And we need to start understanding that, hey, software is a job, cyber is a job, cloud is a job, networking is a job, right? And same thing for, just like you wouldn't put a random dude in a jet aircraft and tell it to go fly the plane. It's the same thing with
Right.
IT and software. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting how people understand that. When it comes to doctors and lawyers and pilots, that's not a discussion, right? But when it comes to stuff they don't understand, like science or software or engineering, for some reason it's dismissed. That's interesting. Um, when you look
Yeah.
at all of these events along the way, right? Every time there was some critical event, right, that happened to the nation, 9/11, right? Different thing that, people are like, wow, we need to wake up. Sometimes we go too far, look at COVID, sometimes we don't do enough. Um, so I'm always afraid when people tell me, well, unfortunately, it's going to have to be the next, cyber, Pearl Harbor event for people to wake up in cyber and stuff. What's your take on that?
Well, I think next Pearl Harbor or next 9/11 will certainly do that. I would say our leaders are also have transformed. I think the leaders that we have now in place, they get it. They were young when they were young, like us. I mean, I think I'm older than most um, general officers. I'm that old, and so, but I think they're starting to get it, and they're starting to do things differently. And that's why this HQE program that you came in on became available. They see the need to inject external energies. There's still a lot of stuff we need to change internally, but I remember in grad school, one of the great things I learned in grad school, which was in cyber. I don't remember anything about cyber there, but I remember a book that I read by an author named John Cotter. He wrote a book called Leading Change. And in it are 8 principles. The first one is having a sense of urgency. I can't remember what the others were, but there's one other one I remember and I used a lot in the last 3 years. It's called, if I remember, building a coalition of guidance, meaning building a team of people around you that understand and have a shared vision that can collaborate together with you. And I think by doing that, you can affect change much more quickly. Without that, I don't think we could have been able to do what we did these last 2.5 years. Make sense?
Establish a sense of urgency, create a guiding coalition, develop a change vision, communicate the vision for buy-in, empower broad-based action, generate short-term wisdom, never let up, incorporate changes into the culture.
So you read the book?
Oh yeah. It's one of the most important book for change agents, how to make friends, all these books, whatever the titles are, they all bring
Right.
tremendous value. Rob Slaughter is
Right.
probably the best to come and speak about those books. He's read them all, and he also knew and understood the importance of it and how to implement it. So now, looking at that, during 3 years on active duty, you're reflecting now, about to depart. What do you think were your biggest accomplishments?
I would say getting our leaders to stay SD-WAN.
That's right. Yeah, I've
They
got
may or may
DevSecOps
not
in
know what
duty. You got
understands.
SD-WAN. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. But I
Yeah.
would say joking aside, I would say the biggest thing that I feel we've been able to accomplish was getting Navy, Air Force, and Army to adopt a common approach to warfighting, to JADC2, to ABMS, to Overmatch, and all. I mentioned earlier the compact fleet N6 saw huge value of what we did, especially based on what Admiral Aquilino had said. And so they've asked us now to participate in a number of their events. And so I kept showing up. And it's been great. The reception by the N6 folks, Bob Stevenson and Richard Williams, was just awesome. And they appreciate what we did, and they continue to help move it faster. And as a part of that, I think a big thing, I will say a symptom example of that was when General Cropsey said to me, gosh, when he first took over, was, hey, Styx, you are fully deputized to open any doors you think need to be opened. If you step on any landmines or hornet's nest, let me know. So my only apology to him was, sorry, sir, I didn't step on any landmines in that because I don't think I opened enough doors. I wish I could have opened more doors, right? But I think as it were, because of him and because of Preston and Mike Whipperman, they gave me so much freedom of maneuver, so much room to move, that we were able to get a lot of stuff accomplished. And they allow me to do what I think we should be done to get where we are today. And now, that said, it's all me. We had a huge team. We had GTRI, MITRES, FFRDC, and UARCs. We had ACCA6, the team there, and we had the new team that came up over at Nellis as part of our team. The guys did all the work, right? And that was the amazing thing to see everybody come together, doing all that kind of stuff. Using the principles that you listed, right, from John Carter. So, but in the end, I think everything happens for a reason. You look at my career, where I came from, what's allowed me to do what I've done. I think it's all providence. I think if I had a plan of myself, I couldn't have done it any better.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. You've done a lot. What about regrets? Anything you feel like, damn, I could have done something better.
I think I could have been more assertive and opened more doors, taken more risks. I've taken some risks, but I don't think I took enough. I wish
It's a
that's
moving
one thing I
target,
could do it again.
but
Yeah, it is a
oh,
moving target.
you moved a lot. I mean, at some point also, then you burn bridges too. I think I burned more bridges than you did. And you
Yeah,
like more than me,
I think
but
so.
I think it's just, for me, it was like, okay, first, I didn't really care because I made enough money and I didn't really want to, do much with the government anyways. But, I think for me, it was like, okay, I have nothing to lose, but I also knew like there's a number, right? You want to follow. And my number was always 70%, right? 70% people liking me, 30% not liking me. That's a good number. If everybody likes you, you're not doing much, right? And so
Right.
that's always interesting to think about, right? So what's the
Yeah,
line
yeah, I
where
agree.
you move that? At some point, if you burn too many bridges, then you can't get anything done too, right? So you don't want to be too close to me either, right? So I think you're in the right spot. So I don't think you should regret that. That's great.
Yeah, I tell you, when I was told recently that this colleague of mine had heard my name being dragged across the mud, and I said, "Oh, really? Oh, it's too bad. By whom?" And he told me, and I said, "Oh, really? That's awesome. I'm glad. That means I'm
Right.
doing something right."
Depending on who is saying it, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
It's
that's
for
right.
me, it
That's right.
enabled me also to, I tell the companies I help and stuff on the board or whatnot. When people don't like me, usually I like, okay, that's a good hint that they were not really going to buy into innovation anyway. So you just saved a bunch of time qualifying leads and not wasting time with people that would just not even end up buying innovative technologies. So that's a good waste. That's a good save time, right there. So.
Right. Right. Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what's next with you. You're retiring. Unfortunately, big loss. For the Air Force. But what's next? You're gonna go back to Microsoft, get a boring, cushy job. What is it?
Yeah, hopefully not a boring, cushy job. I love to be able to take what I learned from the Air Force and apply it there. Right.
Oh, they better use
I
you
think we can.
wisely. They better do that.
Well,
They're gonna
I
find
hope I hope
they're
so
gonna
too.
find the wrath of Nicholas if they don't take care of you. So you
Yeah, I'll
listening,
remember to
Microsoft?
give you a
Do a
call.
good job. Do a good job with Stix. Don't waste his talent. So.
Yeah, well, I want to be able to take what we've done in terms of collaboration and developing a strategy and really partnering with other good American enterprises, right? To do more together instead of alone. And I think that's what we can do the most in leveraging the best of our free market.
Right.
And
And
I want
since
them
it's
to
a free
exploit me.
market, and since it's a free market, and since you can go back to Microsoft, but you can also get a job elsewhere. So if Microsoft doesn't treat you well, people here listening and all these people know what you've done, and they will probably make you pretty good offers. So start let them going because he's gonna get a few hundred like Preston Dunlap and Lauren Nussenberger. So make sure that you start sending him some LinkedIn connections before you you miss the boat. So
Yeah, yeah.
also,
Well,
what's when you look back and you think of the tech and you think of the future of let's focus on technology first of the nation. What do you think is the next big thing?
Well, I think we've caught on to the vision of what SD-WAN can do for us, and I think we're going to be changing our enterprise so much, and we will become so much more capable. I mean, I think I read in articles here and there that China is concerned about Starlink. Well, Starlink is only one. We also have Kuiper coming. And so if we are able to weave Kuiper, Starlink, Iridium, Viasat, everything into one, there's not much they can do in terms of denying our comms. And so perhaps that will be a good deterrent for doing anything, maybe maintaining peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, right? And I want to see that there be peace. That would be a big thing. But I think secondarily, first is getting our nation secure and getting the free market to continue and individual liberty and all. But I think the next big thing is in our own country to keep what we have, right? Next big thing, I would love to do something, and I think you chatted with me. We chatted about this before. You made fun of me for this too. I'm not sure if you remember, but I don't want to be in technology long term. I want to be a freedom consultant. I want to be able to lead people, do workshops, and talk about the foundational principles of our nation. I want to lead people on tours to the Tocqueville estate. If you remember Alexis de Tocqueville, he came to the U.S. back in 1831, wrote a 2-volume book called Democracy in America. I want to go to Normandy, France, where his estate is. I want to do workshops there. I want to drink wine, eat your cheese, and talk about the beauty of liberty. That would be fun and very satisfying to me.
You deserve it. So, Sally can have it. So
Yeah.
obviously, what are your thoughts about, if something happens with Taiwan, what will be the impact to the US, with losing access to Taiwan chips or whatever else?
I think it'll be a big deal. I mean, when I was in Indo-PACOM last couple of weeks, I was in the office of one of the folks from N6, and he said, I was kind of reticent about going all in if we go to war with Taiwan. Should we even be there? And I remember, that reminded me of when George Washington, he cautioned us about getting entangled with foreign issues, right? In his speech when he left the office, and so he says, but he went to Taiwan for a conference there with the Navy and all, and he said, now my perspective has changed because Taiwan accepting the language is just like America, United States in every other way. The freedoms that they have, the things that they enjoy, the dedication to their homeland, to their families and all, it's very much the same. And so because of that, he felt like we need to provide support for them, just as we are with Ukraine and all. If China were to make a move, I don't know. It's going to be hard. That's going to change a lot of things. I'm hoping and praying that doesn't happen. But if it does, we want to be prepared for it. And that's why we have to act with a sense of urgency now.
Yeah, it would be something that we've never seen before, and it wouldn't be fighting against low grade weapons. It would be really another thing that I don't think has happened yet. So and they think outside the box, right? And so cyber, all the additional swarming technologies, hypersonics, everything would come into play. But they also sneaky in a way that they don't have always to use weapons to get things done. So we can minimize their capabilities, and I would rather overestimate than underestimate. That's for sure, right? So
that's right. Yeah. I'm grateful for the teams that we have right throughout the world and the partners that we're establishing.
That's right. So I always got to ask you the question, since I'm not biased whatsoever. How do you see AI, particularly I guess generative AI, change the world if it is or not? What have you seen so far?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna say thank you. Thank you for Sage. Or to me, it's Major Sage. I need a good major to help write articles for me and all. Exactly. Well, that's exactly what I call him. I told a friend of mine, Prescott.
I should have called it Major.
He's
This is a great name. I should have. I messed. Why couldn't you tell me this before? This is such a great
well,
name. I might need to
yeah, Major
rename her.
Sage.
Maybe she's a
Yeah,
major. We just forgot her
yeah,
rank. We need to
maybe
add her rank.
so. Major Sage. Yeah,
That's so
exactly.
funny.
When I have to write stuff, I can give it my parameters, my prompts, and all. And I think there's an art, a science in the prompting, right?
Sure.
And if you prompt it right, you get what you need. And it's like me going to a major saying, "Hey, I need a 2-pager written about this topic," and boom, and in fact, it does it in a real major because it does it in seconds. And that's amazing thing. Oh, and by the way, I want you to
And it
include
doesn't
this.
complain.
Boom,
So
done.
that's right.
It doesn't
Without
talk
complaining.
back. That's right.
And he listens.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and that's just one aspect of it. I think its ability to be able to synthesize huge volumes of data is amazing. We can use it. We can use imagery to train it. It can give us a lot of things in imagery that today will take a human being a lot of time to be able to discriminate. It can be a language specialists, perhaps, being able to translate from one language to another. Maybe we don't need those airmen on an aircraft to be able to listen to other languages. It can identify patterns. And imagine doing, say, training and simulation, running Monte Carlo scenarios through it, a lot of times, so that you can actually see the probability of outcome for certain scenarios. I think there's so many things that could be done with it if we can only
For
engage our
software development,
imagination.
it's amazing. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
people ask us how many
that too.
employees we have, and I keep telling them, no, we're not. We're 3 people. Like, we don't have a lot of people, but we have Sage. And she's like 20 people. And it's just
Right,
a massive
right,
enabler. And the plugins we built,
right,
that scans our repo every night, looks for code improvements, performance improvements, documenting the API. I hate writing. Who likes? I don't know if anyone likes to write documentation for their code. I guess some people do, but I don't like it. And every day does it for me. Every night I get the documentation for free. It's we did
right,
the whole NIST 853 controls. I got a quote from a 3PAO company, right, to do our NIST mapping for $300,000 and 6 months of work. And Sage did it in 7 hours for $200 of tokens, right?
that's right.
So it's just it's just the tip of the iceberg. Cyber defense, you name it. We ingested yesterday the NDAA for 2023 for a briefing with SecAF. I wanted to show a couple of examples of now the questions we can get to ask about the different sections
Right,
and the different work that has to be done. How many people spend an insane amount of time to even comprehend, and by the way, most people don't end up really understanding what has to be done. But this does an amazing. I did a summarization version of it, and it gave me such a great bunch of insight that I was like, wow, I didn't even think of that. It was right there, in 1 hour.
right. No, it's game changing. It's also a disruptor to
Right.
the our and but make no mistake, uh, our adversary is also, thinking about this problem that we are too, and I hope that we can
Oh yeah.
keep up. Yeah,
Beidou gave their GPT stuff to the CCP. The Cross Fabric was still the one fighting to accredit it on CUI, and they're already, way past that. And their GPT is not as good as GPT-4, but it's like more like a 3.5. But still, it's a game changer regardless. And
right,
we're running out of time. It's funny how long it takes to get stuff accredited and authorized, despite meeting every control. And I've done it myself, and I know security and I know compliance, right? And I know how to get it done. And we had it done in February, fully documented, and we're in June, end of June, and we still are waiting for the government to put a stamp of approval. Allegedly, it's cybersecurity. I can tell you, it's not only not cybersecurity, it's also not compliance because we comply. But it's also like completely failing at understanding the importance of that velocity of getting things done. And these massive bottlenecks driven in fear, fear of the unknown, or just plain incompetence. So it's just interesting. um
yeah,
so
yeah.
what keeps you up at night? That's my last question to you.
It's a great question. Thank you for that. Obviously, we want to win this conflict if there's a conflict, or be prepared to win. But I feel like even if we succeed in that respect, and we forget where we came from, we lose our soul. We lose the what America was based on. That's what worries me. I'm not concerned about our own physical safety, but I'm concerned about America and the principles that it was founded on. I remember a story from Reagan. I watched these shorties right on YouTube, and a recent one I saw from him was he was talking about a conversation with a friend, and this is back in 1964. The story is from talking to a Cuban refugee who escaped Castro's rule, and one said to the other friend, "You don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban refugee said, "How lucky you are, man! At least I had a place to escape to from Cuba." And in that sentence, this Cuban refugee told the entire story. And basically, that if we lose our freedom here in America, there is no other place to escape to, because this is the last stand on earth. And I really believe that too. That I'm thinking, where could we escape to if America were to go totalitarian? Can you think of a single place that would be better than what we started with here? It's hard to imagine. And so I think that's why I pray and hope that we Americans will recognize what we have and how to keep that republic that Benjamin Franklin talked about.
That's right. Spot on. All
Uh,
right, so I got one question from you before we let you go.
okay.
And I think Darren is trying to put you on the spot a little bit, so you're gonna have to blame him, not me. So, can you share your thoughts on the CVR bake-off that the U.S. Air Force is doing? I don't know the context, but there's a context behind that question. So
Yes. So the Air Force acquisitions, and what's beautiful is SD-WAN. Our leaders are now using the SD-WAN three letters now, and because I frankly have been kept away from the bake off and the whole acquisition cycle because they feel like I'm too close in pushing SVR, which maybe, but the reality is, I think the bake off is needed, and I wish they go
explain
faster. But
explain what that is. What is the concept? Is it just
the
what is it?
okay, so SD-WAN has a number of different flavors, and Juniper is one flavor with their protocol called SVR. Cisco has Viptela, and I think VMware has Velo Networks. Aruba has
So
their own
is it trying to
SD-WAN
compete?
solution also.
Is
That's
that
right.
trying
And
to
so,
compete? Yeah,
that's
which is
right.
our
They
job,
are.
right? That's the Air Force job.
Yeah, it's our job, and we need to take the claims that they make and then put the claims or requirements against them and to see if they in fact do perform the way that they advertise, and if they perform the way that our warfighters would need at the edge, right, in detailed environments.
Absolutely. Interesting.
So I think it's a good thing.
No, you got to do it. We're tired of getting locked in. How much money are we spend on some of the big guys?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
having
That's
options
right.
is the best interest of the taxpayer. We don't want to waste
Right.
money for the heck of wasting it, and we don't want to, reinvent the wheel because of egos, and we've seen plenty of that in the department. But we also don't want to have only one
Right.
option and be stuck. So
Right.
that's a
Exactly.
great way to think about it. All right, so before I give you the last words, wanted to remind everybody the next show will be in 2 weeks because next week is 4th of July. So happy 4th of July, everybody, and don't forget why you're having a couple of days off, and reflect on that because people always forget where we're getting holidays nowadays. So it's always good to go back and understand and don't forget the history there. Um, we're gonna have the next episode July 11th, 1 p.m. Eastern, with Joe Saunders, dear friend, CEO of Run Safe Security. He's gonna talk about a lot of innovative stuff. So it's gonna be a pretty deep, technical episode, but it's gonna be awesome. He's a great guy. He's really able to explain all these complex concepts, cyber concepts to everybody. So it does a great job. So wanted to thank you, Stix, not only for your time here, but everything you've done, for the nation. You're just getting started. Despite you thinking you've already done, 33 years, you have another 20. So be ready. Number one. Number two, you've done so much. So we're so thankful. And I can tell you most of the stuff that I achieved in the department, I would not have been able to achieve without your help. So that's also credit to you back there. So again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifices for the nation. Thanks for your time here. You were able to again shine a light on some of the great work you've done and some of the benefit to the warfighter, and educating people both on SD-WAN, SVR, and kind of modern connectivity, and the importance of that for the next battle. So thank you again, and the last words over to you now.
No, thanks, Nic. I appreciate you having me on here, but I would say that um, we don't do anything by ourselves. It takes a team. It takes a team of people with vision, with shared vision and all. So I want to thank you and Preston and Lauren and all the others in our circles here that have really envisioned the change. And I appreciate that. It's been a privilege for me. When I go out through airport, I travel a lot, and people will sometimes see me in uniform and say, "Thank you for your service." I'm like, well, what do you say to that, right? It's like, you're welcome. It's not like I gave you a piece of, an ice cream cone and you say thank you. It's not like that. But I really have thought about this. How do I respond to something like that? And the response I came up with for myself is, it's my privilege. And it is my privilege to be able to come to America and do what I do as an immigrant. So thank you. It's my privilege.
Well, with that, thanks everybody. We're all gonna see you in 2 weeks. Have a happy 4th of July, and keep making sure that with all these great people leaving the government, whoever is left, let's make sure that our kids have a fighting chance at winning against China 20 years from now. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.